Fox is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Through the written and oral testimony here, we have seen and heard directly that the Chinese Communist Party has created an environment in which there is no such thing as a private company, there is no such thing as the private sector, and there is no rule of law. There is rule by fiat at the whims of a dictator. By contrast, the United States has earned a reputation as a place where businesses and industry can make long-term investments. We've got deep and liquid capital markets, we have rule of law, and we've made investments in science and infrastructure. But we are not doing enough to sustain and sharpen that contrast in the decade ahead. We have seen attacks on our democracy and on rule of law. We have underfunded science. I will note for the committee that while we passed CHIPS and Science last term, we have not appropriated for the science portion $200 billion that would help us accelerate our edge in research and development. We have not sufficiently recovered the learning loss from COVID and the effects on children's math and science scores and literacy scores. One area that I want to highlight that we can particularly do better, and that is under the remit here of Congress, is on trade. In 2020, the GSP expired, and for the last 3 years, we have been without the generalized system of preferences, which offers American businesses an alternative to importing and doing business with China. And I'm pleased that this committee, with the unanimity of the Democrats on this committee and the majority of Republicans, including the chairman and the ranking member, have written a letter to the Ways and Means asking for the reauthorization of GSP to help accelerate options available for American businesses and American consumers so that we can outcompete the CCP as they are degrading their own economy. And I'd like to enter that letter for the record, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank my colleague, Mr. Dunn, for his partnership on that letter as well. To my questions now, first for you, Mr. Shaman, I want to start by expressing my sympathies for the personal tragedies that you have experienced at the hands of the CCP. Xi Jinping is doing a bad job running this economy, and that has got to inspire discontent within the Chinese Communist Party. And yet we are repeatedly told that it's monolithic, that there is no dissent, that he has flattened all orthogonal points of view. I find that impossible to believe. There's always politics. In any group bigger than 4 people, there's always going to be politics. There's 80 million people in the CCP. Where might emerge alternative power centers to Xi Jinping if economic growth continues to flag and if mayors and the people continue to be frustrated with the lack of growth and opportunity?
Actually, he devoted the last decade of his first 10 years of rule of crushing dissent and crashing all possible alternative power center. I'm sorry to say, at the moment, I really don't see any organized activity, political force to force his hand in any way in China.
Not even from the mayor of a city like Shanghai?
Yeah, nobody.
Ms. Lounsbury, you mentioned in your written testimony that one way that we can continue to draw a sharp contrast with the degrading business environment in China is to work with the American National Standards Institute. Could you expound upon that and what role they can play?
In my experience, talking with companies and being within a company that really had to work with standard certification processes in China, there's just a lot of corruption on that side, and the optics of the way those organizations work together are very different when you get into quiet conversations with them and find out how much money is trading hands, or this and that, a deal for a certified product that could, gain market share. It's just a dirty business. So I'd like to just request that this committee take a closer look at what could be done to create some audit or checks and balances on that.
And finally, Mr. Kazi, for you, do you think that you can be a fiduciary as an American company of shareholder value if you have significant exposure to the Chinese market and are relying on Chinese sell-side information?
Not the way it's done today in reality. the data is completely unreliable. There's a lot of guesswork that goes into it. Truthfully, no. Are there legal loopholes around it and ways you can get away with it? Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I yield back.